Hello, hello. Good evening. I should say good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. We have a special show today. Today is about you. It's about you. And what we're going to do is we're going to share some information. We have a special guest all the way from the US of A, all the way from the US of A. And Katherine Lawrence, you know who she is. I've sent some information about you. She's the CEO of Food Save Me. We're going to talk a little bit more about Food Save Me and how it saved her. And also, remember, we're going to talk about a number of things today: hypertension, and also we're talking about diabetes. We're also going to look at some of the links between hypertension, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and also I've read a book that Katherine Lawrence has come out with, and it's an amazing book. And that book, oh wow, I picked up so much from it. But before I do that, what I'd like to do is I'd like to just take a short break, and then we're going to bring on Katherine Lawrence, our nutritionist, all the way from the USA. I'm going to have a quick talk, and then she's going to get straight into it because time is of an essence today. So really, I want to just switch to the break now. If our break can go through. If it's not going through, I'm going to switch to Katherine Lawrence because time is of an essence today. Okay, it's because we have a technical problem in the studio because it looks like they're not responding to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to bring Katherine Lawrence in because we're going to go straight to the ball. So let me just see if we can get Katherine in. Katherine, are you there?
Hi, I am.
Hi, Katherine. How are you doing? How are
Good.
you
How
doing?
are you? It's so good to see you.
It's so good to see you. You know, the technology, wow,
I
digital
know.
technology, this is it. You know, I remember, when did we meet first? I think
Oh my gosh.
it
I
was a
think it was
long
in
time ago.
London. It was
It
in
was
London,
in a,
right?
no, yeah, in London first. You came to train the nutritionists. And I
Yeah,
think we
maybe
met,
12 years ago,
yeah,
14
yeah, yeah,
years
exactly,
ago.
exactly.
It's been a
And
while.
then we also met on the master dealership, if I
Yeah,
remember rightly.
yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
then
we
that
did.
was good. Yeah. So
Mhm.
thank you, Catherine, for coming on because short notice, but you've come. You're professional. You're ready. So, Catherine, I'll just share some information with you about Nigeria. In Nigeria today, we have a lot of issues with sorry, Catherine, lifestyle diseases. And
Mhm.
one of the biggest ones is hypertension and diabetes.
Yeah.
And what we'd like to do is obviously we'd like to kind of like cover those areas as well as look at something to do with hyper cholesterol and so on. But
Okay.
I'd like to say, let's talk about you first. Food Save Me. Food
Yeah.
Save Me. Can you explain your company name, please?
Oh, sure. So we're a two-part business. We are a Salad Master dealership, and then also we teach nutrition classes to our community to share the power of food, which is incredibly powerful. The name came about from my journey. I used to be in a totally different career field. I was an engineer, and about 18 years ago, I got really sick. I had major reproductive disease and stage 4 endometriosis. And I was told I had no options. I was
Wow.
infertile. I'd never have kids, all that scary stuff. I was told I needed to have everything taken out, a hysterectomy. And that was when, thankfully, someone introduced me to food and also what I'm cooking it in, Salad Master. And I made those two changes and I learned about the power of food. There's so much, and the power of what we're cooking in too. And through those changes, I was able to reverse my irreversible disease. It was amazing. I healed in so many other ways too, but my reproductive system, it took about 6 to 8 months to completely heal. And I went on to have kids. I have 3 sons.
Wow.
And yeah, and I decided, more people need to know about nutrition. So I left engineering and started Food Saved Me, and that's our mission, is to educate others, because we just don't know how much power is sitting on our plate, right?
Wow. I like that. I like that. How much power is sitting on our plate?
Yes.
Guys, I think in Nigeria, when we look at our food, do we look at the power on the plate? Wow. I think Catherine, you're probably going to share some information with us about the power. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna hand over to you because obviously there's a lot of people out there waiting to listen to how you can help them with the power on the plate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So over to you. We're going to start off with hypertension first, and then we're going to have some Q&A, and then we'll move on to the next diabetes later. Okay. So
Okay.
over to you, Kathy.
Okay, thank you. Perfect. Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and congratulations for caring enough about your health to want to learn more and learn what you can do. And there's so much information out there that's so empowering. And I wish I could just talk about it for days, but I'm going to give you kind of a short synopsis of it, a preview. And what I thought was interesting when Tony asked me to talk about hypertension and diabetes, I know these are both very prevalent in Africa. So we're going to talk about a little bit about why, but also what I thought was interesting is they have a lot of the same root causes. So if you decide, hey, I'm going to eat to lower my blood pressure or lower my cholesterol, it's also going to lower your risk of diabetes. So I think that's exciting. I'm going to give you solutions that can help with your overall health. And those happen to include also preventing and reversing diabetes and hypertension as well. And I did some research before our talk today and found that now the hypertension rates in Africa are growing monumentally. It's actually the continent of Africa has the highest rates of hypertension now. And there are a lot of interesting theories about why. So I'm going to talk about how our food influences that. So for starters, let's get our baseline here. So hypertension, that is blood pressure, high blood pressure. And so that's defined as any measurement over that's higher than 130/80 when you're taking your blood pressure. Okay, so that's what hypertension is. And there is a correlation with cholesterol as well. Um, most most doctors, like most areas, the baseline, they try to get people under 200 in their measurement of cholesterol. Typically, we recommend under 150 as the goal because about a third of the heart attacks, the fatal heart attacks that occur, about a third of those are people with cholesterol between 150 and 200. And of course, there are people with 250 and 300 and all that. So a good goal would be under 150 for cholesterol, and then for blood pressure, under 130/80. Okay, so now we're calibrated. We know what that is. And I want to talk about, first of all, where is all this hypertension coming from? Well, if we look at the traditional African diet, because this isn't all of a sudden hypertension is a problem when it didn't used to be. So if we look at the traditional African diet, it was very high in plant foods, and plant foods have specific nutrients that can help to lower our blood pressure. So I'm going to share those with you in a few minutes. And typically, people in rural communities, there's more eating at home, more cooking at home, fewer restaurants and things like that. They're eating a lower fat diet and definitely a lower sodium diet as well. And so then as we migrate to more urban areas, there's more restaurants, right? And when we're eating out, of course, and in the majority of restaurants everywhere, you're going to get a lot more fat and a lot more salt. So we're going to have excess sodium and excess fat. And both of these are contributors to raising our blood pressure. And then also, we find that as people get busy, and maybe they're moving to the cities, or they're working more, or they're just busy, right? Busy social life and all that. We see this increase in processed foods enter that community. And so when processed foods come in, what we get is a lot of sodium and typically a lot of fat. And they don't have a lot of nutrients because a processed food is not the way that something appeared in nature. It's been processed, right? And things have been removed and things have been added. And so all of these changes can affect the power of the food on your plate. So that's one more to think about. And then is physical activity too. That's going to be a player for high blood pressure as well. So we want to be physically active. So I'm going to focus on the food for sure. So Okay. I want to share a few things from my book that Tony mentioned. It was written here. I'm in Texas in the US, and it's called African American Nutrition, but it was designed for people who live in America who are who are of African descent. And so it would apply to all Africans, really. So I want to talk about a few basic concepts with blood pressure, cholesterol, and how they're related. And one of those big things is saturated fat. So what is it that drives up our blood pressure and our cholesterol? Saturated fat can do that. So when we're thinking about cholesterol is all mammals have cholesterol. We need cholesterol for our cells to work, for our brain to function. We need a little bit of cholesterol. And so we have this brilliant mechanism. It's our liver, and it uses nutrients from food to produce however much cholesterol we need. But what happens when we eat another mammal who has cholesterol in his body, we're going to get his actual cholesterol, if that makes sense. So that's one of the ways that we can experience elevated cholesterol is if our diet has moved from the traditional very high plant dense diet to something with more animal foods and animal fats. That will be introducing more cholesterol, if that makes sense. And that would also include dairy products. Another way that our cholesterol gets raised is by having saturated fats. And these are found many different places. You can get them in oils, also in dairy products and animal products. That's why it's an issue. But when we have saturated fat, when we eat a lot of it, it actually stimulates our liver to start producing more cholesterol. So our poor liver, first of all, it makes what we need. And then if we eat an animal that has cholesterol in it, then we also are adding more cholesterol. And then if we're having foods that are high in saturated fats or trans fats, so this would be, as I mentioned, the animal foods, but also oils and frying that triggers our liver to start producing more cholesterol. So now we're getting cholesterol from like 3 different areas. And so that is what contributes to this rise in it. But also, what contributes to a rise in cholesterol and blood pressure is that fiber has significantly decreased in all of our diets. And so, I want to show you a chart on these on this document real quick. So, we're going to talk a little bit about fiber and how that can lower our cholesterol and lower our blood pressure. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen. All right. Hopefully you guys can see this. And oh, yes, it's on the screen. Great. Okay. So we are going to go to page 32, if I can get there. And because I think visually this will help you. So why is fiber an important player in blood pressure, hypertension, and cholesterol? Well, it does a couple of things for us. So fiber, it helps to remove excess cholesterol. So when we have too much, our body has a mechanism to use fiber that's found in plants to get rid of all that cholesterol. And so I can't tell you how many hundreds of patients I've worked with that have high cholesterol. And just by introducing more fiber into their diet, they're able to safely reduce their cholesterol. And it's because it is designed to grab onto that and remove it from the body. And now fiber also helps us to regulate blood sugar. So I mentioned we're going to talk about diabetes in a minute. This is a really big factor, is increasing fiber. It'll help you also to lower your cancer risk because it removes excess hormones. So if you have any hormonal issues, I had reproductive issues, right? That would be a hormone issue. Fiber can help to regulate those hormones. It also helps to remove carcinogens and toxins. And then it helps us with digestion. And I would say one of the most important features about fiber is that it fills us up, right? And when we're full, we don't reach for those other things. We don't reach for those fatty and sugary desserts and drinks and things that might be counterproductive to our health. So the fact that fiber fills us up is a big deal. So where do we get fiber, Katherine? Well, fiber, the definition of fiber is actually plant roughage. So that means it's found in plants, right? And so if you want to kind of see where you're at, here's an estimate, like just a quick way to estimate. You can see beans have 14 grams of fiber, 1 cup of beans. And so our goal needs to be around 40 grams. And most people are getting a fraction of what they need. So they're getting about 10, 12, 15 grams of fiber a day. And so if we stop and think about that for a second, like, wait a second, Katherine, you're saying that fiber can help us to reduce our cholesterol and manage our blood sugar, and then also reduce our high blood pressure. But then you're also saying that most people don't get enough of it. Well, it makes sense that these are some of our most common chronic illnesses, right? Heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. And so a big contributor to that is just simply lack of fiber in the diet. Now, if we talk about, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Also, I want you to think about something with high blood pressure. Now, our blood, if it gets thick, it can be very sludgy, right? And then so that means if you can imagine that your blood is very thick, now your heart has to work even harder to move that blood around to the important organs in your body that rely on it. And so one of the ways that our blood can get thick like that and sludgy, besides saturated fats, is just in general a high fat diet. So using lots of oils can drive up blood pressure. I recommend, we actually teach not to use oils when cooking wherever possible. If you need something, maybe adding a little bit of water or broth, something like that. But what's happened is, the traditional diet is very high in plants, high in fiber, high in all these great nutrients that help us to combat these diseases, and typically very low in fat. And so wherever we can reduce fat, that is going to be beneficial for blood pressure. I want to give you a couple more tips, and then we are going to talk about salt, because that is a massive contributor that I think is important to acknowledge for blood pressure specifically. So I want to give you, this is also from the book. I want to show you just some kind of quick references in the differences in fat. So foods that are rich in saturated fats are listed here, and those rich in trans fats as well. So these are going to be things that drive up both our cholesterol and our high blood pressure. And if you're wondering, well, I wonder how much cholesterol the foods that I'm eating have, here's a quick reference. Now, most people, myself included, were surprised to find out that chicken and beef and pork, they all have around the same amount of cholesterol. Isn't that wild? It's marketed very different. And so all of these animal foods on the left, these are going to have cholesterol. So we're going to eat them, and then we're going to get their cholesterol. And then to boot, they also have saturated fats. And so that's going to trigger our liver to start producing more saturated or more cholesterol, which complicates the problem. I want to show something here before we move into salt. So what can I do, Katherine? What's the good news? So this page is very important. And let me zoom in so you can see it. If you can introduce more plant foods to your diet, research supports that it will help with hypertension. Plant-based diet, so that's a diet that's very heavy in plants and minimal in processed foods and animal foods. They've shown to reduce the risk of hypertension by at least 34%, which is remarkable. We talked about the benefit of fiber in plants, but another thing with plants is they don't have cholesterol. They're not mammals, right? So we're not adding to the problem. And most plants are very low in fat, which we also saw, and they're naturally low in sodium. But if you struggle with hypertension and you really want to, you're like, I want to do even more than just plants, which ones do I need to focus on? These are potassium rich foods here on your right. Now, potassium rich foods, these are very beneficial for hypertension because they relax the blood vessel. And when the blood vessels are relaxed and free to constrict and expand when they need to, it's easier for the heart to pump blood through them. And then also, they help to excrete sodium through urine. So, we're going to talk about that specifically, why that's important for Africans. And so, anywhere you can incorporate these food, beet greens, avocado, red cabbage, bananas, cantaloupe, oranges, tomatoes, almonds, cashews, spinach, broccoli, winter squash, potatoes and yams, lentils, beans, and dried fruits. All of those are going to be beneficial. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about in regards to high blood pressure is specifically salt and sodium intake. Now, everyone's intake of salt has dramatically increased over the last 30 years. And this is because of we're using a lot of salt in processed foods. We're going out to restaurants more where there's notorious for high amounts of salt. And then it's just becoming a habit. There's also complicated marketing, which sometimes promotes salt as something we should be adding to everything. And so let's talk about salt and why that is important for anyone of African descent. And it has been concluded that Africans are actually a salt sensitive people. It is a genetic predisposition, which is really fascinating when we think about our origins and our climate and all the different climates around the world. And we talk about this in the book. I'm going to go to the correct page here and we'll look at that together. Pardon me. Want to get to the right spot so you don't get dizzy watching me scan. Okay. So, for example, what happens is that, so in some cultures, like in Caucasians, for example, when we have extra sodium, we release it through our salt sweat and our urine. And what happens with people of African descent, and they attribute this to the exceptionally hot climate, right? So what happens is that now, instead of, well, not now, I apologize, that what happens instead of releasing excess sodium, people of African descent, their kidneys hold on to the excess sodium. And what happens, I'll bring up this page in the book so you can see it. So when the kidneys hold on, you're thinking, oh, that doesn't sound so bad. No, it's actually genetic design and it was a really good thing. So what happens is, and this is from Dr. Barbara Dixon, when the kidneys hold on to that excess sodium, that sodium will attract and retain water. And if you think about that, if you're in an exceptionally hot climate and spending lots of time outside, this is a good thing. This is a defensive mechanism to protect the body so it doesn't get dehydrated. But when sodium attracts this water and retains it, that makes blood volume rise, and that is what increases blood pressure and heart rate. And so not a big deal for a traditional diet that is high in plants and which naturally is low in sodium. But our modern culture doesn't have us living like that. We've added in a lot of processed foods that are high in sodium. We're cooking with a lot of sodium and then using meats and animal products, which are often seasoned with them, and then going to restaurants where everything, I mean, even vegetables can have too much salt on them. And we're getting in the habit of putting a little here and a little there. So what happens in the African community is that this salt sensitive people, they're actually having more salt, more and more. This is increasing. And this is creating problems because we also see this match in elevated hypertension rates all over. So I also want to bring up one last thing that I think is worthy of exploration. And they've recently, just within the last few years, discovered this genetic predisposition called, it's a hormone system called RAAS, and it regulates blood pressure and balance. And so what happens when Africans have too much salt because of the design of their kidneys, it inappropriately stimulates this hormone system to start retaining salt and fluids. And so then that's how we see the rates of hypertension increasing so much. So I just want to encourage you, if you're thinking, well, I want to make sure that if I have this, I want to work on reducing it and overcoming that. Or if I don't, I want to focus on how to prevent myself from becoming one of those statistics. What we can do is, one, increase our plant foods that have this natural potassium, and they're going to be lower in fat and sodium naturally as well. And of course, cholesterol free. But then a really, really important addition is to add fiber so that can assist us in moving the blood around, removing the excess cholesterol and things like that. So I think this is probably a good place to stop and take questions, Tony, if you'd like. Oh, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I think I've got Sharon's on the line too. So I think, hi, Sharon. Thank you very much, Catherine,
Hi, good
for sharing
evening.
that. Good evening. Thank you very much for sharing that information. One of the things that from the sounds of it, we've got to start sacrificing some of the things that we like that are not good for us. Yeah. And, one of the things that you said there was that when we eat animals, yeah, meat, then we take their cholesterol and add it to the cholesterol we have.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
So I think that means that we're doing damage already if we've got bad cholesterol. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're adding to it.
We're adding to the cholesterol. So now a lot of people in Nigeria, they like meat. They like meat. In fact, I would go past they love meat. And what we want to do is, how can we encourage them? Yeah, obviously, people that are not feeling well, they probably will switch quickly. But those that are on the way to not feeling well, how can we encourage them to eat less meat? What are the things that we can do?
Well, I think probably the most effective approach is a crowding out approach. And so what that means is focus on your positive goals. Like I want to have this many vegetables a day, and I want to have this many grams of fiber per day. And if that's the priority, then you'll notice that you're full and you don't have as much room in your stomach for the animal foods. And so, and if someone is having a lot of animal foods, then I would follow that with something high in fiber, like beans or whole grains, something to continue to move that food through so it doesn't affect them as much. But really, I understand about taking away, but I think if you add those other things, you won't desire the meat so much. Your desire will change.
Okay. But is it right? Because some people say, okay, I'll get rid of my meat and then I'll start eating vegetables. But is that going to be okay for them without them doing what you say, the measured balance of food? Because I hear a lot of people say to me, "Oh, my sister or my friend went on vegetables only and they were sick." Why is that? Why does that happen?
Well, I don't recommend eating only one food group. You know, we have all of these wonderful food groups with a different mix of vitamins and minerals. So if someone wanted to eat a lot of vegetables, that's fantastic. 50% of our plate should be vegetables, but the rest of it should be beans or lentils, peas, whole grains, and fruits. And then also some nuts and seeds there, because if you're just having vegetables, you're not going to get enough protein. You won't get enough calcium. And you won't get enough of some of the special antioxidants that we need for our brain. So So please don't eat just vegetables. Eat like half vegetables and then add all these other plant foods with it. So it's balanced. Mhm.
Fantastic, fantastic. Sharon, do you have any questions at all?
Yes, there's a question that I have. Good evening,
Hi.
Catherine. Lovely to see you. There's a question about people going onto the plant-based diet and they follow it for 30 days. And as Tony's already said, lots of people here in Nigeria love meat. So if they decide to go back onto having meat again after following the 30-day program of plant-based, does that kind of eradicate all the good that they've done with their diet?
You can undo it very quickly. And so if someone goes plant-based, so I want to clarify that's like whole foods, not like Oreos stuff. So if they do that, what they will experience is a drop in blood pressure, a drop in cholesterol, better blood sugar rates, but also the most important to what you're saying is a change in their gut microbiome. After 30 days, I mean, there's this study I love. It's called the Great African Diet Swap. Have y'all looked into it? They took people from a rural part of Africa who are eating the traditional diet, lots of plants. And then they took people from US who are having very high animal food and fat diet. And they swapped their diets for 2 weeks and extensive testing. And you won't believe within 2 weeks, the rural group, after eating the more urban diet we're talking about, their gut microbiome started to create all these chemicals, which are precursors to colon cancer, and their cholesterol skyrocketed, their blood pressure. It only took 2 weeks. But the other side of that is the urban group who adopted the plant-based diet within 2 weeks. They had all these protective bacteria in their gut, which was killing off colon cancer cells. And they had all of these benefits. It was funny, the group that changed to plant-based, most of them refused to go back. And I see that here when someone tries plant-based for 30 days, they're like, you know what? I feel better. I'm sleeping better. I don't want to go back. They get addicted to how they feel instead of addicted to their food like they were before.
Fantastic.
Okay,
Wow, I'm
that's
gonna have to look. I'm
interesting.
gonna have to. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at that one.
Mhm.
There's a question
Yeah.
on the screen right now. I think it is. I
I
think
can't
it's.
see it.
Uh,
Oh,
is
yes, oatmeal.
yeah,
Oatmeal
yeah.
is so good for you. I don't want to complicate it. There's two kinds of fiber, soluble and insoluble. Soluble is what's in oatmeal. It gives it that creamy texture. The more you stir it, the creamier it gets. That's soluble fiber. That is the one that attaches to cholesterol and attaches to hormones and gets all that stuff out of the body. Please have oatmeal daily. I would prefer you have it as steel cut, instead of like the processed traditional oats. But oatmeal daily, and be careful what you're putting in it. Don't load it up with a bunch of sugar. Put some fruit in there or some bananas to sweeten it, maybe some nuts.
Right. Fantastic. Fantastic. So the other thing that I was going to ask is you talked about salt.
Yes,
Yeah. So are you saying salt is bad for
Mhm.
us?
I am saying that Africans are salt sensitive and should be very careful with it.
Mm, mm,
I don't recommend adding, restaurant eating so much salt. I mean,
mm.
you'll get your week's worth of salt in one meal traditionally, typically. But then also, I don't recommend adding it to your food until you're sitting at the table if you need a little bit. And as you wean off of salt, you'll find that your taste bud sensitivity to it changes and you won't need as much. But yeah, it's something that we need to be careful about. Processed foods and like frozen food meals are typically very high in sodium too.
Okay. Okay. What there's a question because we like our oil in Africa. Yeah.
Yes.
Traditionally, one of the things that you find in Nigeria, especially, is that we fry our meat in oil. Then we will now fry the soup in oil. Yeah, and then we will now add the meat to the soup. And then we will now fry our rice in oil, our jollof rice in oil. Then we need some plantain, so we will fry that in oil. Then we combine it all together, and then we have a nice meal. So somebody is asking about palm oil. Are you familiar with palm oil at all?
I am. So okay. Prepare yourselves. I am from South Louisiana. I'm a Cajun. If that doesn't mean anything to y'all, I grew up on a very rich, very heavy in oil diet and lots of meat. So I respect the place that these habits come from. But what I found is that these oils they're not benefiting you. You know, traditionally oil was only used to fry vegetables when people needed more fat, when they were outside in high temperature and expending a lot of calories doing physical labor. And that so that's when the vegetables were prepared in oil. We don't need to be well, I will never, as far as palm oil or any oil, we don't need that. What happens? Oil is really it's unnatural if you think about it. Whether it's from palm or an olive or whatever, what happens? Oil is 100% fat, so we extract just the fat from whatever that plant is, right? And we leave all the protein and all the nutrients, and our body doesn't know what to do with 100% fat because that's not how it showed up in nature. That's not what we were designed for, right? And it overwhelms us. So if you are insistent on cooking with oil, I'm going to give you an amount to limit it to. At the most, 1 tablespoon a day. That is about your entire day's worth of fat almost by using 1 tablespoon of oil. But if you can eliminate it completely, you will see a difference in diabetes, heart disease, hypertension. It is a major contributor.
Fantastic, fantastic. Somebody's asking, how do you fry okra? Is it okra? I said, oh, no, akra. Oh, no, akara. Sorry,
Yeah,
akra. Yeah.
akara.
So,
It's akara.
so what I'll
Yeah.
say is, look,
With less oil.
come and see a presentation in one of our offices, and we'll show you how to do that without oil with Salad Master. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
one of the biggest things that drew me to when I was trying to change my diet, you know, when you're making healthy choices, you also have to make other decisions in the kitchen. I had to find tools that would support the way I wanted to eat. I knew with my issues, I had to find a way to cook without oil because I was determined to heal. And so on that journey, that's how I found Salad Master, because you're able to cook everything without oil. And that's a very life-changing thing for me and the thousands of students I've worked with.
Right. Okay. So we've got someone that has a belief. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe palm oil is healthy, but not all, and in moderation. So, do you understand? It's essential. What's your take on that?
Well, I think moderation is a slippery slope. And I think it depends on your personal health. If someone has heart disease, high cholesterol, hypertension, then I would definitely say, please set all oils aside. If they don't, if they're active and they have a diet that's very nutrient dense, then a little bit of oil here and there, I don't, you know, I wouldn't get upset about that. But the difference is that most of us are not healthy. We're not where we could be. And so that idea of moderation is tempting for a lot, like a little here, a little there. It gets out of hand very quickly.
I love that, because what you're in a nutshell saying, look, if you're ill, then stay away from it. I mean, those people that are fairly well or think they're well anyway, and they don't have any complications, then we take things that are not so good for us anyway.
Yeah, not a big deal here and there. Yeah,
Great,
but
great, great.
that's how most people are using oil.
Great. So what I'm going to ask, just one last thing before we move to a break, and then we'll come into the next topic. And what I picked up from you is that we're designed differently.
Mhm.
Yeah, my my color
Yeah.
and your color, we're designed differently,
Yeah.
and food affects us in different ways. Yeah,
Yes. Hmm. Yeah.
and that's but the thing is, we're living the Western lifestyle.
Yes.
So we're eating foods that maybe your bodies can cope with as Caucasian. Am I right? And
Yeah.
then
Hmm.
yeah,
We
but
have. Oh, sorry. Go
we're
on.
but we're importing them into Nigeria and trying to live like you.
Yes. And this is, yeah, you and I, we have slight genetic differences. How we process salt, dairy lactose intolerance is another difference. 90% of Africans are lactose intolerant, and most African Americans don't even realize it, but that's not as prevalent in the Caucasian community. But vitamin D, you need more vitamin D than I do, Tony, because you have this protective melanin, which I don't, which makes me more susceptible to skin cancer, right?
Right.
So we have things that protect us from our original climate, and then how we were eating a long, long time ago, but we've all, gravitated to this different kind of diet and different lifestyle. And it's really amplifying some diseases in certain cultures. Mhm.
So thank you very much, Catherine. Thank you very much for the question and answers now. So we're going to take a short break, just a short break, and then we're going to come in with the diabetes side. Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you very much, Sharon. Yeah. So we're just going to take a short break and come into that. So thank you. There we
Thank
go.
you.
Hello.
Sorry, I think we.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Dolly. I am a medical doctor with over 7 years of experience. Do you?
Oh, I think there's a technical problem somewhere. So.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Dolly. I am a medical doctor with over 7 years of experience. I want to share some stats with you today. Do you know that in Nigeria of today, one person is diagnosed with diabetes in every 2 minutes? Over 700 people are diagnosed with diabetes every day. Let's go down to high blood pressure. High blood pressure puts 1 in 4 Nigerians at risk every day. Around 9 out of 10 Nigerians are unaware that they have high blood pressure. What about cancer? 10 Nigerians die every hour due to cancer. 240 Nigerians die every day due to cancer. In Nigeria, over 102,000 cases of cancer occur every day. How about obesity? 1 in 4 adults in Nigeria are obese. 1 in 10 children in Nigeria are obese by the time they get to the age of 4. In all these diseases, there is one thing in common. One thing they have in common is in lifestyle and diet. And that's why we say that you are what you eat.
Wow, wow. I like those vegetables. You see that salad master machine? Wow, I like that salad master machine. If you want one free, ask Catherine how you get one free. Yeah, so I'm going to bring on Catherine again. Catherine, how you doing? Yeah,
Good. I love watching the machine. I couldn't stop it. All that yummy food.
all that salad, all that salad, all that healthy food. Wow,
Yeah.
wow. So now today, now the next we've got Sean. Also, we're going to get into diabetes now. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to get, because of time, I'm going to go cut straight to the chase so that you can probably do a few minutes on that, because I know you've got to go somewhere very soon, and we want to get this topic covered as quick as possible. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you
Great.
very much. So over to you, Catherine.
All right. So I've already told you about fiber and cholesterol and blood pressure. All of that is actually, all those recommendations are going to be beneficial for diabetes too. So to get calibrated, diabetes is a disease that occurs when blood glucose, so that's blood sugar, is too high. And it's, some people are not afraid of diabetes itself. I am terrified of the complications that come from it, because over time, it's commonly causes nerve damage, eye problems, kidney disease, heart disease, and all that. So what I want to show you though is the root cause of diabetes. And then this will circle back to our oil conversation, okay? Because before, in the last several decades, the messaging around diabetes has been, well, just manage your sugar, just don't eat foods that have sugar and avoid carbohydrates and do all this counting and all that. And it has shown to slow the progression. But what I want for myself and for you is to not slow your progression of this terrible disease, but to reverse it entirely. So I want to show you the root cause here. Now, I'm going to take the screen because I think this will be much easier for you to understand. And then that'll kind of tie everything together that we've been talking about with food already. So do you see this chart here? So this is just a cell in the body. And these yellow blobs, it says intramyocellular lipid. That's just fat. All right, that's just fat. The mitochondria, these little brown spots, that's what controls our metabolism. That's a good thing, right? We want those turned on, not turned off. Okay, glucose, this is sugar that's circulating in your blood. And here is insulin. And so the root cause of diabetes, wait for it, it's not sugar. It's actually fat inside the cell. So let me explain to you what happens in our cells. So normally insulin right here, these little blue binkies, they attach to insulin receptors that are on our cell's surface. And what happens when the insulin goes into the receptor, it sends a signal to the glucose receptor to let the sugar into the cell because our cells need sugar. Right? So it sends this signal to the cell membrane that says, let glucose come in. However, if fat, that's the yellow, the intramyocellular lipid, if fat is accumulating inside our cells, it interferes with that signal. So it never makes it. Right? Do you understand that? And so when there's too much fat, the insulin receptor sends the signal, it just gets lost there. So the glucose receptor does not let the sugar in, and that sugar is left circulating in the blood. And then what do we end up with? High blood sugar, right? So high blood sugar is just a symptom. The true problem is too much fat in the cell. But it's a double-edged sword, actually, because when we get this fat inside the cell, not only does it elevate our blood sugar, but it turns off those mitochondria. And the mitochondria are what control our metabolism. So shoot. So now we've just slowed our metabolism down. So again, diabetes has a lot of similarities to high blood pressure and to heart disease. And that's why when someone has one, they have a much higher likelihood, a higher risk of getting the other, because they're caused by a lot of the same root symptoms. And so with diabetes, it's too much fat inside the cell. And I've worked with hundreds of diabetes patients. I'm going to give you a resource at the end here, a book that you can read about it. And And what we found is when we lower the fat in their diet, that means removing the animal foods, removing the oils. When we lower that fat and increase their fiber, hundreds of them have been able to reverse their type 2 diabetes. Isn't that amazing? They get off medication. So they're no longer on this cycle of just trying to slow the progression. But I think the most exciting thing for these patients is that when you lower your fat and increase your fiber, when you get to that point, you don't have to do any carb counting or portion control. When you're eating a plant-based diet to reverse diabetes or prevent it, there's no portion control. You eat whole foods until you're full, because they're going to be naturally low in fat. So hopefully that makes sense, and you can see how, lowering fat in our diet, reducing our consumption of oil, increasing those foods that are full of vitamins and minerals, all those plant foods and fiber, can really benefit us into preventing diabetes. Should a diabetic person stay away from milk? In my opinion, yes. So one, like young children, for sure. There's some evidence that, and this is why pediatricians don't typically recommend it for young babies and things. It's because when our pancreas looks out and sees dairy, it has proteins and things that mimic our insulin. And so it signals the pancreas to shut off. So there's actually a lot of correlation with early milk consumption, like dairy products, and type 1 diabetes. And that's the one that you have for a lifetime. So as far as an adult staying away from milk, the reasons I would want to: one, it's typically high in fat. Two, it carries cholesterol with it, which is another issue, and and it can affect blood pressure as well. So, and it also doesn't have any fiber. So if you're drinking milk specifically for calcium, then I would encourage you to get that from beans and dark leafy greens.
Thanks a lot. That was fast.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions? I like the fact that, so what you're saying is what causes diabetes is the fats that
there's
go
a
into
question that I'd like to ask.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Can we use
sorry.
an alternative milk, a plant-based milk, if people want to take milk? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
And what would your
and I'm not,
Sharon, I think you've got a delay, because you asked the question and we were about to, I think, Catherine, you were about to answer it?
Okay.
Yeah, plant-based milk's
Okay.
fabulous, and they have they're usually fortified with vitamin D and calcium too, which is good. But whatever they prefer in taste, I wouldn't recommend coconut milk. It's typically higher in saturated fat, but the oat milk, cashew milk, soy, rice, almond, hemp, all of those, tiger nut, yeah, that should be fine. And that's going to be a much more healthful alternative for sure.
Fantastic. Sharon, the next
Great.
question you had?
Right. Good to hear. No, it's been answered. I was going to ask about soya milk. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
so typically, when people say they're diabetic, they say they're staying away from sugar. Why is that the reason? Why does that always come up?
Well, that's old research, and that has shown to slow the progression of it. But the whole point is, like, why let it progress? And so what we see with patients with diabetes, the reason they're still progressing is they're focusing on keeping their sugar low, but in return, they're eating a lot more fat. And they're removing healthy carbs that we need, that your brain needs. They're removing them in the name of, I can't eat that, because of the sugar. And so it's removing important nutrients that would be protective, and then advancing the diabetes itself because of the fat.
So what's causing more of the problem? Is it the fat or the sugar?
The fat.
The fat. So if they reduce more fat,
they need to eat fewer fats. The fat is see, when the sugar's in the blood, it's a problem. The sugar belongs in the cell. So when we reduce the fat, the sugar can come in the cell, which is exactly where we need it. The dangerous part is when it's stuck outside the cell in the blood and that creates, high blood sugar. Is natural honey good? As far as a sweetener, that would be preferred over some of the more processed ones. Yeah. But if you could do like stevia or something like that, you'll find that you use even less, or like monk fruit, date sugar, like things like that. But I have no issues with honey. From a health perspective. Can diabetes and blood pressure conditions 100%? So I can, only God knows with certainty, but I can tell you as a nutritionist who's been in this industry for 18 years, absolutely. I don't want to say 100%, but I would say 99% of the cases of diabetes and high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, are strictly caused by diet and lifestyle. 99% are completely reversible. And that's why I want to share some resources with you so you can read these books and see people all over the world are using this to take control of their health. They're both big killers.
Right. So you're going to share some resources with us. And I know the time is fine. Just one thing. I noticed you are also into Salad Master. So how did you link Salad Master, nutrition, and what you do? Because obviously some people are always wondering, why Salad Master? What's the difference?
Well, a couple of reasons. When I realized I needed to have less fat in my diet, I was searching for a cooking system that would allow me to do that. So that's how I first came about interested in Salad Master. But then I learned some other things. I recognized as I started to study nutrition, these nutrients that God put in our food, they're very protective for us. And regular cooking methods at high temperature and using a lot of water, it's killing those nutrients, about half of them in most cases. And I realized, why am I eating a carrot if like half of it is dead, right? And so that's another thing that got me into Salad Master. And then I think that what ultimately holds us to a healthy diet, sometimes it's desperation because we have to, but most often it's flavor. And because we enjoy the food. And so I've found that my food tastes substantially better when it's cooked in Salad Master at low temperature. And then I'm not adding whatever flavors or chemicals were in my pans that I used to cook in. I didn't realize how much those changed the food and then also affected my health. So it was a process of elimination when I said, I'm going to do this with my health and I need this with my food. What cooking system supports me best in that?
Okay, there's a question on the screen.
Oh, I can answer that real quick. Is type 1 diabetes also reversible? It is not reversible, but I want to encourage you. You can reduce your insulin requirement from 30 to 60%. You can reduce, can you imagine reducing the insulin that you need by 60%? I've worked with patients who have reduced it up to 80 by adopting a plant-based diet. Yes, so it's not reversible, but definitely you can do it in a much healthier, less expensive way on saving on the insulin. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. And, I just want to just say something also. The diabetes, what you are saying, the Salad Master, is that you want to still eat the food that you like, but you don't want to cook it in oil or fat. So
Right.
Therefore, you have to find an equipment that can help you still enjoy the food, but without the oil. Is that right?
And yes, exactly. And one that makes my plant foods taste better. My children will eat veggies all day at home. And the minute we go to a restaurant, they're like, ugh, I need the plant foods to taste better. So I crave them. And Nike, I'm going to answer your question when I share the resources. I promise.
Okay. So I think those are the questions. And I'd like to say thank you very much for coming on for us. We really do. We'd love to see. I know you're coming to Africa. Yeah.
Yes, I am.
You're coming to Africa. You're coming to Africa is it April?
In May.
In May.
The end of May. I'm so excited. I can't wait to learn and experience.
Oh, wow. But I hope we can divert your plane to Nigeria or to Ghana.
Amazing. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So you wanted to share some more information. Just
Yes.
over to you.
Very quickly. Let me see can you see that slide yet? No?
No, no.
Okay, present slides. Here we go. Sorry, I'm a little amateur at that. Did it come up?
Nope, can't
Oh
see
my
it.
gosh. Oh my gosh.
Is it the one that's Food for Life, save me?
Yeah, yeah. Can you
Okay,
see it?
can I add it to you? Can I add it for you?
Please, please. Yeah, I just want to show that. Show
Please.
the next
Yeah,
slide.
yeah.
There we go. Okay, so my story. You want to talk about fibroids? That's an overabundance of estrogen. And so go to the website foodsaveme.com. Look for my Katherine story, and there's some tags in there that says got endometriosis. The same thing that causes endometriosis for the majority will apply to fibroids. And my contact information is on there. I can send you more info. Also, a book for fibroids would be Your Body in Balance by Dr. Neil Barnard. AAnutritionclass.com is our website specifically focused for people of African descent. From there, if you're interested in getting the book, you can find it. But if you're interested in you're like, I want to teach, I want to share this information, we're working on a certification that will be online. So just stay tuned for over the next 6 months, and you'll be able to download free resources from there. We're working on that. Also, if you're interested in teaching, foodsavemeinstitute.com. But I want these 3 books, very important for what we're talking about: Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease by Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, mind-blowing, and Diabetes, Dr. Neil Barnard's program for reversing diabetes. These are going to be very helpful, very beneficial on your journey. But most importantly, I think you'll find them very encouraging. I would like to add Dr. Barnard, I believe Dr. Esselstyn, I'm not positive, but Dr. Barnard uses Salad Master, and he talks about Salad Master and how important it is to prepare your foods in this way without the oils and at lower temperature with more nutrition, how much healthier it is. And an insulin pump is fine for type 1. And that's the thing. What I like about insulin pumps is you can measure how much you're using, and you'll see when you move to low fat and more plants, you'll see that requirement for insulin going down. And that is what you want, to be able to survive and thrive on as little insulin, added insulin as possible. So no problems with the pump. It'll actually give you more insight. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, Katherine, shall I take the slide off? Let me just quickly.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So, Katherine, thank you very much. And you know what? It's been the information has been powerful. And the reason why it's powerful, because the food has to be powerful. So now you've got information that's powerful. So the power in your plate has increased. I like to say to everybody in Nigeria, listen carefully. Let's eat more plant-based diets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And follow all the offices have a plant-based food challenge, 30-day challenge. Go on the 30-day challenge. We have a 30-day challenge, complete plant-based for 30 days.
I love it.
Yeah, and we have some people on the call today that have been on that program for over 30 days and completed again. So guess what? It is, if you can do it, everyone can do it. And I think, Katherine, you've just come on this call and you've kind of nailed it. And thank you very much for that. Do you want to say a few words to your new African friends? And guess what? We want you again. We want you again. So
I would love it.
We want this time you and Matt. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. He's funny. Yeah. Thank you so much. This is such an honor. I'm so grateful. And I just want to encourage all of you. Your food is so powerful. Don't follow the mistakes that we have made in the Western world, because we have a slew of diseases coming with them. You know, you have such good resources at your disposal with Tony and your Salad Master dealers. So many, and there's so much knowledge out there. Once you dive into it, you'll start, it just opens up all sorts of things. So congratulations for even listening today and letting these seeds marinate and decide which steps you can take to be more successful and empowered over your health.
Oh, thank you, Katherine. There's one last question. What type of oil is good for type 1?
None. Get your oils from nuts and seeds, please.
Get
and
your oils from
like olives and avocados. Yeah.
Join the 30-day program. Join the 30-day program in your office, and you'll get to know what's best for you. So, guys, thank you very much. And Salad Master, I'd like to say thank you very much to Salad Master, our sponsors for the program, and also HLS Global and Seven Shields. Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thanks,
And thank you very much for Food Save Me. Somebody's life is going to be saved by this program because we have Katherine from Food Save Me. So thank you for saving us, Katherine. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Hey guys, it's me again. Remember my midnight strolls in Lagos, the heat in Lagos. Yeah, guess what happens? I'm now in the freezing London. Freezing London. It's freezing. Look at that. Look, some of you can see some of the places a bit dark, but it's freezing. And the freezing making me think of the heat in Nigeria. But this one I've got to do quick because I'm cold. I'm cold. Now, what's inspired me? What's inspired me during this walk? You know, you get those people that you tell them to eat healthy, and you probably even do a presentation for them. And at the end, they know it's right. And you know what they say? Something must, my friend, something must kill a man. Now guys, something must kill a man. Yep, not something, yeah. Something can kill a man. Yeah, bad food can kill a man. You know, we heard of people committing suicide by taking pills, taking things that are not good for them, and they die. That's not in God's time. That's in their time. Some of us are taking our lives in our time, not God's time. And what do I mean by that? We're eating food that's bad for us. And guess what? We're leaving the world earlier than expected. Yep. Don't tell me God asked you to eat bad food. No, you decided. So guys, what I'm saying to you all here, stop saying something must kill a man. Yeah? Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Watch yourself. Stay healthy. And guess what? Get on our Health Restore program. 30 days of detox. That's what you need. Detox. Give your body a go. Give it a chance. Give your health a chance. Life is for living. And thanks. Me signing out. Bye.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Oh yeah. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Standing in line, just waiting all day. Too afraid to try and make a change. But now I realize I've got to be brave. Thinking out, what can't the be?
Hello everyone, my name is Jessica.
And I am Chef Rosemary.
We are chefs and we are mothers. On behalf of KSHL's Global Salad Master, we are wishing all mothers a happy Mother's Day.
Get your Mother's Day special at bestfoodclinic.com.
Happy Mother's Day.